I think the biggest question I would say, and I'm glad you brought that up, Paul, about having a variable, because I was gonna say I speak to people all the time and I say, listen, I'm in a variable. I'm at, my payments increase. I'm on a adjustable rate mortgage where my payments increase whenever prime does, and I still stay the course. I don't even think twice about locking in. And the reason why I say that is, do any of the listeners or anyone that I speak to, do you think that Canada and the US is going to hit a recession in the next year? If the answer is yes, then don't convert and lock in, because
You're listening to the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast with your hosts, Paul Stevenson, David Warren, and Greg Campbell. Let's see what's going on in the world of real estate today.
Yes. We're all back. Three Musketeers back in the building. Except for David, who's outside.
Yeah.
We're back. It's the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast. My name is Paul Stevenson. I am a mortgage agent. I'm here with Greg Campbell.
Hey.
Greg Campbell is a managing director at the agency, Ottawa. Agency.
Also a realtor.
Also a realtor. That's right. Forget about managing.
First and foremost, realtor
And managing director. And David Warren, mortgage agent and owner, Referral Mortgages. We're here. It's Colonel By Day. Shout outs to Colonel By, Greg's alma mater.
Go Cougars.
Go Cougars.
in the building.
Most horrible sign in the front of the building, but
Yeah. But
So
go.
So decrepit.
yeah. How was the weekend? How's the week looking? What's cracking? What's
Weekend was
cracking?
good. Back in town. So that's good. Back in town, right into an open house yesterday. Had some visitors, and market's just trucking along.
You had visitors.
Yeah, I had 3 visitors. And so my colleague Luca Merrick, another agency agent, he had 10 groups through his open house in Canada, in Canada, right off Terry Fox on Gowrie. Great listing. 10 groups. He was very surprised. I was surprised.
Must be
on
almost
open
August.
houses this weekend, when historically long weekends do not bode well for open houses. But apparently now it's nice. And all of mine were first-time buyers, just starting.
Interesting.
Sound like they need pre-approvals, those ones.
Well,
Tell them
they were all working with agents.
Mhm.
And but it was good, because I told them, I said, you guys are starting at the right time. I was like, good for you. Get on it. They're like, that's what we keep hearing. I'm like, yeah. We didn't know. We just really started the process. So that was good to hear. I find that some people are still sitting on the fence, though, when there's lots of opportunities right now.
There's a lot, and even to that point, a client of mine, triplex in Hintonburg, just tied it up. It was a price drop of 150,000, and he tied it up at list. They obviously had an offer date, nothing came. He was able to tie it up with condition of financing, with the condition of inspection. Going into it, he was like, thinking he would have to go unconditional, that it might be busy because being a good location for a triplex. And he kind of had multiple offers ready to go, depending on whether there was other traction or not, and was able to tie it up at list with conditions, which was very nice, because I now have a few days to work on it
To get it done.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys this question. So I've had a few right now where, agents are requesting to extend finance by a few days. Saying the lender, and I'm like, it makes sense to me. Are you guys seeing that as a more common thing with everything going on and all the changes, that the lenders are asking to extend conditions just to be safe or to approve properly? I don't know.
So, I think it would depend if those people are looking to get appraisals done. I think that's the biggest worry.
Yeah.
Most times right now, if somebody's pre-approved, or you got the file on your desk, in most cases, whether they're going to get approved or not. Sometimes it's an exception base, or, sometimes it's a shot in hell, but most times, 98% of the time, where the file is going to go and how it's going to turn out. Right now, the biggest is in the appraisals and them coming in light or being concerned about that. And so I think that's where sometimes it's taking those extra days if they're looking to order that appraisal. Banks still, over the last couple of years, even though things have slowed down, they are still really slow at reviewing documents and things like that. And I think, as mortgage agents, it's nice to be able to have time right now that we can analyze a deal and like take our time, get an approval, like, conditions signed off on before somebody having to waive financing, as opposed to, the other side where everyone's always going in unconditional and then we're like up against it, looking at worst case scenarios. I think that's where the biggest is, or that they haven't sold their house yet and they're just trying to extend. I think right now the biggest right now that I see is in appraisals coming in light, because price is shifting. And then the other side of it that, on appraisals, and the other side was, what the hell was I going to say? I forget right now. My dog started annoying me. My dog started annoying me. Yeah. It'll come back to me. There's a second thing, but I forget what it is now.
Yeah, that's all right. We're all a little loose in the mind, I think, today. It's been a long
holiday
weekend.
Monday. What do you expect?
A holiday Monday. Let me why don't we just do this? Why don't I just get into some numbers here?
Sure. Let's do it.
Let me shock you. Let me shock you, Ottawa. Let me shock you. So I'm going to go over and do a couple things here. Now, don't get mad at me because it's August and I'm going to do a June review right now because we don't have the full numbers for July. I'm going to be doing a monthly thing where we're going to do, the month compared to the month last year, because it's very interesting to see. And these are actual real numbers. So if you look at June 2021 versus June 2022, the numbers, so we had just over 1,600 freeholds sold in June 2021, 483 condos sold versus 1,138 freeholds sold and 370 condos sold in June 2022. So the numbers are way down year over year in terms of what actually sold in June. That has to do obviously with, what we believe is, what we have to believe is, the rate increase and whatnot. More coming on market and just buyers generally being concerned about where they're spending their money. Now, this is the most interesting thing to me. So the average sale price of a freehold in June of last year was $726,000, and this year was $772,000. So that's only $50,000 off. But the condos are almost the exact same price as they were last year at the same time. There's like a $3,000 difference. And there's way more inventory. We've got about 600 more freeholds available for sale in June. And inventory of condos was, almost the same, 514 in 2021 versus 587 in 2022. So now I see this in June, and I'm very anxious to see July because I think that the prices are going to be getting closer to what they were last year at the same time. The condos are already there. Very interesting to see, because as we all know, a few months ago, those numbers would be very different. I'm going to talk about Riverside South. This would be the week of, I'm going to do 2 weeks ago versus last week. So the week of the 18th, July 18th to July 24th, there was 12 detached homes on the market with an average of, this is active, 12 homes on the market, 38 days on market at 1.434 million average list price. There was one that sold, it was listed at 1.16, but it sold well under. I think it sold around just under $1 million. So the sales price to list price percentage was 96%. In 2021, also one sold in the same week. It was on the market for 1 day, and the price was 1.135. Now that's also very close. And that one was at 113%. So that was 1 day on the market, multiple offers, but close to the same sales price. Townhomes, there were 24 active, 37 days on market, average, 721K is the average sales price. Conditionally sold, there were 2. They had been on the market for 30 days. The average list price was $707,000. Sold 7 homes, 20 days on market average, 628K was the average sales price to list price, 103, versus the same number in 2021, 7 sold, 13 days on market at 618K. So that's only a $10,000 difference. Sales price to list price, almost the same, 101%. Condos, 4 active, 501k, 26 days on market, 1 sold, 20 days on market, 475,000. Sales price, oh, that was the average. Sorry, sales price to list price 118,000. Now, there's something that I want everybody to be aware of here. The sales price to list price value on these is skewed because all of the ones that made this number were unreserved listings. So they were listed at about 100,000 or 150,000 less than what they sold for. So if those were taken out of the list here, we would definitely be closer to a 96% sales price to list price value. So I updated this with this week or just the last week. And we are...
Sorry, Stephen, can you keep that chart up while he's going through these numbers just so we can do a direct...
yeah, that's a good idea. So for detached homes, we have 19 active now with an average of 37 days on market, basically the same, but the average list price is now 1.341. So that's down almost 100,000. Sold, there's 1 home at 1.039, and that's 1.039, and it's sold for 970. 93% sales price to list price. Townhomes, we have 25 active, 35 days on market, close to the same, 737K average. So the price on that is up week over week. Sold 6 days on market, 29, 606K is the average sales price for a town right now in Riverside South. 2021, same time, 6 sold, 612K. So you see those numbers. So they were selling this week, the same time last year, the average was $6,000 more for townhomes in Riverside South. Very interesting. And there was no condos, no condo action there. So I have some info for Orleans. Now, I want everyone to bear in mind that this is a comparison of all the townhomes in Orleans built from 1970 to 2022. So depending on the area, this could be a little bit different. There are 74 active townhomes in Orleans right now at an average list price of $634,000, 35 days on market average. Conditionally sold, we have 8, average price $594,000, days on market 21. Sold, we had 10 sold, $576,000 was the average sales price, days on market 29, sales price list price was 98%. In 2021, the average sales price was $558,000 at the same time. Average days on market was 16. So, and there was currently 19 price reductions in Orleans in the last couple of weeks for the towns. Now, clearly, I think we're clearly getting close to same pricing as last summer in most markets in Ottawa. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I definitely think it's interesting that it's coming down, that it's come down that much right now. I think, it'll be interesting to see with the fixed rates coming down right now. So insured rates are down almost 0.5% over in the last 3 weeks. Conventional, I know you guys talked about last week, but conventional fixed rates are the bond rates stay down and keep coming down like they are. That'll bring down the conventional rates. So it'll be interesting to see how that shifts the market coming out of vacation time and into end of August into September of if both of those, kind of that typical push of the market anyways, come back from vacation and then combined with the rates coming down, how that will even things out or whether it'll stay, same pricing as 2021 or even uptick at the end of the year. I do think that there will be an uptick by the end of the year.
I agree.
I think prices will be higher than what they were in 2021. I think 2022 will end that way. Right now, it's just a little bit of that vacation lull. And then things will pick back up. That's what I think. But
and what do you guys think about there's supposed to be a rate increase. They're talking about an impending rate increase in October, right? First week of October? September. Yeah. So when you're talking about, Dave, about things like fixed rates going down, like this rate increase in September, if it happens, so what does that mean for that whole process?
So that only affects variable rate mortgages.
Only variable rate mortgages. Okay.
So variable rate mortgages are only tied to the Bank of Canada overnight lending rate, and that's what they're adjusting, and what they just adjusted an increase by 1%. And because of inflation, where it's still at by September, they'll likely increase, another 0.5 point, and that'll affect bank prime. So that'll affect your variable rate. Fixed rates are tied to a publicly traded bond, so the 5-year Canadian mortgage bond, or CMB. Right now, that has dropped significantly, and that is what fixed rates are based on, and that spread over and above that bond rate. So that's what's driven the insured fixed rates down. Conventional right now, they're only artificially keeping them high right now to increase profitability margins. I think if they'll stay, the bonds stay where they'll be at over the next week, we'll see conventional, like 30-year amortization, refinance rates, things like that. The fixed rates coming down into the mid or higher 4s from the mid 5s right now. I think we'll see it dropping, and that'll, kind of that effect will have on the market. Predominantly people go to fixed anyways in Canada over variable. It was only variable was winning out over the past couple of years because of the huge discount on prime and where prime was sitting.
Right.
But I think most people track the fixed rate and looking at where that is. So them seeing it again, psychologically seeing it down from where it was will push it, and kind of seeing a 4 instead of a 5 in front of that at the beginning of that rate is going to make a huge psychological shift, right? Combine that with the pricing being down, like you're saying, you're just going to get I think you'll have people flooding back to the market, and that's just going to drive the market back up. So all those 10 groups of home buyers that you had through, I think, to your point, are looking at a good time.
For now.
Yeah.
They wait 3 weeks, they might be plugging themselves to greasing up the doors to get people through,
But that's the thing, right? With the amount of people, the turnout that we saw at the open houses, like, clearly, I think these numbers of how many listings we're seeing, even with the price drops, I think they're going to start selling soon, a lot more than have been in July. Now that people have kind of wrapped their heads around it a bit better.
I feel like it'd be hard to not take notice. Like, if you're a home buyer and you've been sitting in the wings, and you see the home that you've dreamed of drop from, $850 down to $799, $775, it's like, shoot, maybe we should get in here. Like, we can get, like, I think there's a lot more conversations happening about people actually getting out and shopping, essentially, because
let me ask you something.
I think people have been discouraged. So I think that like you said, lower prices coming down, maybe a bit more affordable. It was funny when we talked about that article last week. We were showing the average mortgage amount and then the income needed for that mortgage amount. And it's all, to Dave's point, like it's a lot of it is psychology, right? It's like prices are down, but the actual income you need to get that home at a lower price is actually much higher. So, your payment's going to be about the same. The home price is lower. So people are like, oh, there's a discount happening right now. And then, they get in there and buy it. And then they're going to have a higher, or essentially a similar payment that they would have had 6 months ago for the next 5 years, but they're getting it at a lower price. So it feels like they're winning,
Yeah. And do you guys think that if you're in a variable mortgage, you can just automatically, is it automatic? I can't remember. Can you just go into the bank and say, like, I now want to go with a fixed rate mortgage?
Yeah, you can convert a variable rate mortgage to a fixed rate at any time.
Like anytime. Yeah.
So they'll match up. They'll match up what you have. So if you have 3 years remaining on your variable rate mortgage, you can convert to a 3-year fixed, let's say. So you would convert, based matching up your terms, and nothing would change on your maturity date, but they do match up the rate with the remaining term. But, and that's where I think as prime is going up, and I've spoken to people about it in variable that are unsure and watching it, that are, with fixed rates coming down a little bit, that you'll see more people locking in that you have to thus far. But yeah, it is a timing thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think, we're getting to the 6%, I think there, right? By the end of the year. Do you think that's going to happen? Or do you think that with the drop in what you're talking about here on fixed, it might not go there?
It's possible. I mean, really, it just depends on what are inflation numbers for August. for July and August end up being. If it's coming down at all, then they might not make as aggressive a hike. But if our inflation numbers are still high sevens, I think they're going to have to increase another half point, 3/4 of a point, and then we're at 4.7 right now. So get a half point. We're now we're at 5.2. So 6% isn't out of the really we just need 2 increases, and we're basically in that territory.
A lot of the conversations I'm facing now are people kind of, we've been, let's say a month and a half ago, telling them, hold the course, it's okay, right? It's not the right time to lock in. And then now, rates went up 1%. So now it's at, their rate might be in the mid to high 3s. It's like, well, are you sure I shouldn't lock in? Like, it's kind of that, it's that same conversation happening again. And obviously, as we always say, we don't have any crystal balls except for Greg. It's still like, in this moment, it's still not a good time to fix. Like, maybe if a month and a half ago we did have that crystal ball and said, okay, well, fixed rates are going to actually come down slightly, variable rates are going to go up another 1.5%, 2%, then maybe, in hindsight, in April, maybe you should have locked in at that time. But I still think even if you locked in over the 5-year, like over the total course of your term, the 60 months, you're still going to come out ahead by sticking with variable. So the conversations are challenging because it's a matter of like showing them the total body of work and not just the snapshot of the 2 months where variable rates, or whatever, 6 months of variable rates are increasing. I do believe they will come down again in the next 3 years. So if you're new into a variable rate and you're panicking because your rate's gone up 2% or 2.5% since you got it, I still think after the 60 months, you're going to look back and say, well, thank gosh I didn't lock in to that fixed rate, because I would have paid an extra 10,000 in interest or whatever it is. So we're still facing a lot of those conversations. I'm sure you are too, David.
Yeah.
But as anytime there's headlines about rates increasing, those are the conversations. Well, should I lock in? Shouldn't I have locked in? What's happening with variable rates and so on. I mean, myself personally, like I've had to, again, I'm with TD, so I don't have an adjustable rate. Like my mortgage, the payment's staying the same, but I've had to voluntarily increase it now 2 or 3 times just to keep my amortization where I want it to be, right? Because so I mean, it is for a lot. I mean, for myself too. Like, you're increasing your payment by hundreds of dollars every time. It's not a small amount. Like, it does have an impact on you, right? So I think there's a lot of people that are kind of going through that. I don't want to say growing pain, but that sort of adjustment right now with their payments. And yeah, it's still, there's a lot of challenging conversations, but again, it's just a matter of explaining that you have to look at the full 60 months. And if they'd locked in at, 4.5% 2 months ago, they're not going to want that for the next 4.5 years. Like, rates, I think, are going to come down again in the next, 18 months or 12 months. So
I think the biggest question I would say, and I'm glad you brought that up, Paul, about having a variable, because I was going to say, I speak to people all the time and I say, listen, I'm in a variable. I'm at, my payments increase. I'm on a adjustable rate mortgage where my payments increase whenever prime does. And I still stay the course. I don't even think twice about locking in. And the reason why I say that is, do you, any of the listeners or anyone that I speak to, do you think that Canada and the US is going to hit a recession in the next year? If the answer is yes, then don't convert and lock in, because prime is going to plummet as they need to stimulate the economy. We're seeing the equities market tank. In Ottawa, we see, Shopify, making an announcement they're at 10% of their staff globally they're having to let go. So I think we're going to see Canada and the US hit a recession, and that'll affect the prime.
So it'll just repeat what's been happening,
and that's what always happens.
Kind of.
And that's all you can speak to. Paul's saying we don't have a crystal ball. We don't. It's all we can look at is historic numbers and what the trends have been for over the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years of variable versus fixed, where they've gone regardless of, yes, they've come, overall rates have come down from 20 years ago, but the banking industry is different. And the way that we leverage, or that we don't, or the banks, or how the banks lend money is significantly different from 20 years ago. So we're not going to get into that 20% range again, but you have to look at that historic nature of the cyclical market that is real estate, just like cyclical market of the of the equities market. If you look at the historic of the stock market, yes, we've gone into bear and bull territory and recession's not. But you look at the historical trend that it's going to continue going up. So why do you continue putting money into your RSPs or into mutual funds or into EFTs or stocks? Is because you believe that over the long term, things are going to go up. And it's the same with real estate. You have to kind of look at it that way.
Lots of opportunities right now for people.
Yeah, I agree.
You know where those opportunities start, Greg? With a conversation.
With you and I.
With a conversation.
That's how every opportunity starts. Conversation, talk about it.
This conversation, leads to another conversation. Get your numbers in order, get your ducks in a row, and then the last most enjoyable conversation, finding a home. Finding a home.
You gotta find a home. Like, I mean, yeah, I don't know. There's things to do here. There's things to do. People can do that.
I have a quick question before we go, Greg, for you. I've seen the rental market. So for actual like renting of apartments, condos, townhomes, etc., the rent seems for apartments to be almost on par with like a 3-bedroom townhome. Is that because of students? Like, is that because students are coming back? There's kind of a premium there, or is that a scarcity issue?
Well, I mean, I did 2 rental condos downtown this year. And I mean, I did a 2-bedroom. What did we get for that? 2-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 2-bath with parking, $2,700 for a condo rental. And I just did another one, which was a 1-bedroom den. These are all downtown, by the way. 1-bedroom den, $2,100 with parking. So that's very similar to like some townhomes. Like, I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah. And you can get like a 3-bedroom Canada townhome for,
just depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah.
You know? So, but yeah, you're right. And rental, I had some rental numbers before.
I mean, rentals are going to be more challenging this year for in a lot of cities like Ottawa, where we've got students coming back for in-class learning to the universities. That's going to drive it. But you also have a lot of new builds that are being canceled or suspended because inventory is not moving. There's an article talking about Toronto on BNN that out of 30,000 units that are supposed to be started, and obviously a big portion of those are going to be rentals, 10,000 of them were put on hold because of construction costs, things not moving. So you got a third of what was planned to be built in Toronto is not going to be. So, the same, I don't know what the stats in Ottawa are, but the same would be said. I mean, I'm in the West Centertown, Preston area, and there's 16 condos slated for development. They're not all being built. There's a few huge developments that were put on hold, specifically for that reason, for rising costs.
Right.
And all that.
And me and Paul talked about it a bit last week, and it's right at the time when all they're talking about is that there's not enough housing. And then this is just crazy. It's completely backwards of what's supposed to be happening. Did you guys see what happened after with the banks now in China after the Evergrande thing?
Well, with them putting tanks in front of the banks, is that what you mean?
Sorry,
where they were putting tanks in front of the banks so they couldn't take money out?
Well, yeah.
Or you mean with Russia?
No. No. With China, so the people, like, just for anyone that doesn't know about this, like, with the Evergrande thing we talked about last year or beginning of this year, I guess it was, where they went bankrupt basically. And so all these people that were waiting for their condos to be built no longer had condos being built. And the banks still went through and started charging them for the mortgages. So then everyone stopped paying their mortgage, and then the banks froze all these people's accounts and held all their money because they weren't paying them. So, like, I don't know the full details, but I just thought that's a pretty crazy thing. So who's at fault for that? Where's the people's money?
Yeah, there was what I was talking about. There was basically, I guess there was something that happened where basically people couldn't withdraw their savings. And not to get into too many international politic conversations here, but they couldn't withdraw their savings. So they basically put military tanks in front of the Bank of China in anticipation of a possible uproar After the it says after the subunit of the state's central bank announced that deposits are now considered investment products and cannot be withdrawn further. So basically, just locking their money in the bank.
Wow.
Yeah. So it could be worse. You know, we could
crazy times, guys.
Yeah.
Let's hope that doesn't happen in Canada.
Yeah, that could never happen here, Greg.
Oh yeah, never.
Those sorts of things could never happen in Canada. So let's get into the mood boost,
there, bud.
Yeah.
Get into some mood boost.
Stop with the Debbie Downers over here.
Yeah.
Rep.
Okay, I got. I'll start with 3. Here we go. Number 1, I lost my mood ring. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yes.
Speaking of crystal balls and stones and gems, when is a football player like a judge? When he sits on the bench, riding pine. Number 3, when does a joke become a dad joke? When it becomes apparent.
Oh, wow.
And last but not least, what's the best thing about Switzerland? I don't know, but its flag is a big plus.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
There you go. That's it.
Those are something.
I guess the Switzerland joke. I guess people just have to know what the flag looks like.
Yeah. Like, oh, I guess he really likes their flag. Yeah. So that's exciting. Speaking of Europe, at least, my daughter left yesterday for a little European tour. She's going graduated this year. I think people that are close to me would know that. So she's doing a month-long tour of the UK, basically Ireland, Wales, England, Scotland. So she's
that's
pretty
amazing.
She basically showed me she had a huge, literally a PowerPoint of all the places they're going, the dates, the timing. Very organized young lady. But yeah, very excited for it. The first time she's traveled to Europe before, actually, but she's never done it on her own. So it'll be a good
That's crazy, man.
Going with one of her friends. Yeah.
I love that she has a PowerPoint together. When I finished university and backpacked for through Asia and before that through Europe, I literally had an in and out flight booked, and other than that, had no idea where I was going.
Yes, the best
on a
way
piece of paper, and I'd be going to an internet cafe to try and find somewhere to stay for the next place, and that would be it. She's got PowerPoints put together, everything organized. It's I don't know, we'll get there eventually, or we won't. Whatever.
Yeah.
New generation.
And then, at least her dad will know where she is at all times.
Yeah. Exactly. So quick shout out to North Brew Coffee as well. And actually, before we get into North Brew, if everybody can please subscribe, like, share, review, etc.
Well, they've already tuned us out by now, Paul. Nobody's listening right now.
All right, bye everyone. Shout outs to North Brew Coffee. Go to northbrew.ca. Use the promo code podcast, and they're going to give you 20% off your coffee order. 20% of that order also goes to the Ottawa homeless community. So great coffee, great cause. That should be their tagline. I mean, it is at this point. I mean, anyone who listens to the show, they probably assume that's their tagline. It's not. Shout out to the agency. Shout outs to Referral Mortgages, to Tow Rep. And we'll see you next week. Enjoy the rest of the day, gentlemen.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, because we'd really like that.